I want to explain something
with this intriguing little story.
It is a little bit unbelievable what Michael is doing. Extraordinary as it may seem, Michael has something momentous, not only to Devon, but to the future of the whole world. The trouble is, he's not very good at explaining it, which could be the reason why the world doesn't know. Michael's farm is half on a hillside and half in a valley. In Devon, they call this a coombe. I told Michael, we need to tell people this story. He finally agreed. I insisted we talk on camera.
It was something that needed to be done.
It arose in the dark days of the Second World War, when Britain was facing the prospect of a prolonged siege. Bill Peary was one of the great scientific brains of the 20th century. In 1949, he was elected to the Royal Society, the highest of echelons for a living scientist. He was a plant biologist, making significant discoveries in viruses and DNA. However, his pet project was green leaves. For 57 years, he lived and worked at the Rothamsted Experimental Research Station in Harpenden. Within green leaves, he felt there were properties that could radically change the world.
To cut a long story much shorter, Peary discovered a process that would produce the highest form of protein ever discovered, but Britain was entering the Second World War.
Peary was working on his protein project at Rothamsted when World War II broke out. The government slapped a classified military order on the project. It was to become part of the nation's secret survival strategy. Peary was asked to come up with a plan to fulfill the protein needs of up to 40 million people. Peary came up with a plan where the protein needs of 40 million people could be harvested on just 40 farms. Not only was this an incredibly nutritious form of protein, but it was also amazingly efficient to harvest. Over 10 times more efficient than any traditional protein source. The hitch was this machine.
That machine was crucial to the process.
The job of this machine was to bruise and crush freshly cut leaves, and it had to do it in a very precise way, or else the protein formulation would, in fact, be poisonous. And as simple as this machine may look, it took years of design to get right.
10 years went by before the machine was ready.
By the time the machine was ready, the war was over and the British government was no longer interested. But to Peary, it was not merely about wartime shortages. To him, it was a major advance in protein nutrition. Also, he saw that half the world was hungry and suffering from malnutrition, And he had the answer to solve it all. Peary was convinced this formulation could solve the world's malnutrition, and various foundations provided funding to implement trials in various third world countries. But incredibly, something always went wrong. The protein turned poisonous. Accidents happened. Although this Rothamsted machine always produced edible results, other machines did not. Was some hidden hand at work preventing the world from having cheap, nutritious food? Possibly. Whatever the reason, Peary never quite made the breakthrough he was looking for. And eventually, a somewhat disheartened Peary turned his attention to beta-carotene and various other cutting-edge projects. For years and years, the machine lay idle at a garage at Rothamsted, until, by some twist of fate, it landed up at Michael's farm. What was Michael's interest? Why did he want it?
I realised that it was the most efficient way of producing protein from the land.
Well, that may be true, and more than likely it's an efficient use of Michael's land, but I had the impression that Peary's vision was to feed the world and cure its malnutrition.
It is an answer to malnutrition.
About 2 or 3 times a year, when he can get hold of his son, Michael makes a modest batch of the product. There's something curiously old-worldly about the whole operation. Everything done methodically, following Peary's recipe, using Peary's machine, not too fast, not too slow, just about right. I kept feeling, why don't you speed it up? It's meant to cure the world's malnutrition. This is meant to be an answer to optimum health. What about a combined harvester, a sponsor, a marketing agency? But hey, maybe this is exactly the way it's meant to be. And you know, standing here, I suddenly feel quite optimistic about the future. All the talk of global disaster doesn't seem to matter because all the answers are close by. I wonder how many other secrets are quietly lurking in Devon's combs. But now it's time to move on.